Hey, welcome back. So, we're going into part 6 of my testimony. Last time we talked about the hardships that I faced, the storm that I actually going that I went into last year, going from 3 different homes in 1 year, even being in 3 different salons in 1 year. And the end of the year, I have a full-on transition to living in New Jersey with my best friend, and not just living in Jersey, but ultimately taking a break from business and from doing hair, and ended up working at a diner, which I don't remember if I mentioned this yesterday, but the diner that I work at is in Philly. So I'm taking a break from business, and that started in December of 2023. Now, from December 2023 to February of 2024, I had like a 3 month break, which was so nice and great to go through. So even though I was working at a diner and I was working there overnight, I had cut off communication with my family based off of everything that had happened. So I had this sense of freedom that I didn't expect to get. And because I took a break from doing business and from hair, all the business things that I was working on and dealing with, just like a weight lifted off my shoulders. So during this break, I had this freedom and a joy and a peace that I had not experienced in such a while. And I was just so happy that I was just able just to get this break and this freedom. Now, based off of what I mentioned yesterday, towards the end of 2023, I there was like the beginning of a workplace romance that took place, in particular on December 31st of 2023. Leading up to it, when I had gotten to the diner, I started working at the diner the week of December 1st. And I just started working with my coworker. Eventually, something shifted and changed in our uh, coworker relationship because we had created a foundation of friendship. But it was on December 31st of 2023 that he gave me a rose with a red rose with a white bear on it, and it said, "I love you." Of course, I'm like, okay, why did you give me this? And he said he didn't know, but that he saw it and just thought to give it to me. Now, the thing that's perplexing about this is that when I first met him, he mentioned that he had a girlfriend and then he loves her. So it's kind of like you didn't think to hold on to it and give it to your girlfriend while you're handing it to me. From there, it kind of started an opportunity for a workplace romance. Now, it never got far, so it's not like we ever met up outside of the diner. Everything was usually at the diner. And because I wasn't trying to be in a relationship, I didn't see him that way. But he was doing the pursuing in the beginning in in the romantic sense, where we were getting along. Because, like, for example, because of where he's from, another country, because of where he's from, he was teaching me some of his language. And one of the first things that he taught me was, "I love you." And it's like, okay, is there something you want to tell me? Why are you teaching me this? So it was like subtle things like that. And he was also very kind, sweet, and gentle towards me. Now, usually, whenever I notice I start catching feelings for someone, I do this one thing, and I have this one particular prayer. It works every single time. And I ask and pray, like, God, if he is not the one, remove him. Let me know. Reveal his heart to me. But when I first asked this question, I asked in a broad sense where by the mere words of what I said, it could have meant anybody that I was working with. But in my heart, this was a directed question. Like, I want to know this man's heart towards me. And the first time when I prayed that prayer, God answered quickly. And it's not what you expected. Where I was expecting like a definite no, this guy's heart was he was very sweet towards me, very gentle. That by the time I'm going home, I'm kind of like giddy and girly. And I stopped myself like, wait, hold up. That was not how this was supposed to go. I was expecting a no. I was expecting like, this ain't happening. This is not this is not a chance. That the second time, which was a little bit of time later, that when I asked this question again, and I was more specific, like reveal his heart towards me, because I noticed how he did treat me. I even noticed how I was, the feelings that I was developing for him. So I prayed the prayer specifically, and I was like, surely I'm going to know. And yet again, I'm leaving work kind of giddy and kind of happy about the night that I had, and I'm like, wait a minute, it happened again. Eventually, there came this one particular weekend, and it was me and the Lord. And like my sleep schedule tends to change up, and like any random moment, I can start waking up early. So in this particular weekend, I started waking up early in the morning, and even though I was working late at night overnight, I woke up early, and I ended up having a conversation about this guy with the Lord. Evidently, like by the end of the weekend, in particularly the Saturday where I ended up having to go into work, I asked the Lord this one question, like, okay, Lord, what season are you preparing me for? What season am I going into? And I found out, because God answered me right in that moment, that He's preparing me for marriage. I'm like, what? Of course, this seemed too good to be true for me, because that was something I wanted. And I just was like, I kind of didn't want to believe, like, this is too good to be true. That's something I want, and now you're going to actually prepare me for it. That was when I was like, okay, wait a minute. If it is true that you are actually preparing me for marriage, then I need a sign. Give me a sign that you're actually preparing me for marriage. So after that conversation, I take a nap, and of course I get back up in time to go to work. And there was a server there who was coming in late because she was coming from a wedding, and she knew that I like putting flowers in my hair. Whenever I was at the diner on Saturday nights, there would be this couple that would come and sell roses or flowers. But for the people who were working there, they would just give the free flower. And then she handed it to this server handed me a white calla lily, because she knew I like putting flowers in my hair. So, because I like looking up what certain flowers mean and what they symbolize, when I looked at what this white calla lily symbolized, marriage was a symbolism for it. And I knew and took God seriously, like, okay, you're preparing me for marriage. Of course, I didn't know what this would look like, but I was like, okay, I'm getting prepared for marriage. Had no idea what I had before, what I was going to end up going through. Eventually, there was this point in time where it became very evident that me and him had feelings for each other. People could see our interactions. My best friend was very quick to pick that out and noticed it. So like her eyebrows like spoke a lot, even though she didn't say anything. Her eyebrows would say, which was something funny. And it just, our relationship had taken a direction in a particular way where he and I really did get to know each other. Of course, this never went outside the diner, so we never met up outside the diner. But there, we just would talk all the time. And when we were at the diner, I may have clocked out at the time I was supposed to clock out and leave. But even after I would clock out, I would still be talking with him. It first started out as I'm leaving, I had to start my car because it was cold outside. The moment I start my car, let it warm up, I would talk to him a little bit more, then I would leave. Eventually, it graduated to the point where I was talking to him for like till the morning, like sun came up. And it's just, that's how our relationship actually grew in our relationship. But the downside was that he still had a girlfriend. And it was in the midst of this, there was a point where his girlfriend went away to go visit family for a week. But she was only supposed to be there for a week. It ended up turning into a month, which kind of took place like the span of end of January into somewhere into February. And then when she came back, he actually was going to move forward in their marriage process. So a little backstory, he's not from the United States, and because of how he came into the United States, he had to seek asylum, and he was trying to stay here. And it was under he got into a relationship, and both him and his girlfriend both knew and understood that if they get married, it would be helping in his citizenship. But they also went to make it as a relationship so that they would know each other and actually just move forward to get together in a relationship. When she came back, he had a deadline to actually marry her, and so he was trying to get her here sooner, but she didn't come back until later. So there was all this going on, and of course, I'm off on the sidelines knowing that there is no need for me to say anything or try and move forward with this because he has a girlfriend he claimed that he loves, and he's going to move forward with the marriage. It was also simultaneously, there was a different server who recommended that I tell him my feelings for him. Of course, I'm sitting there like, nope, that ain't happening. I am not going to do that. What is that going to do? And it wasn't out of a sense of pride. I just thought it would be selfish for me to say something. And I wouldn't want to interfere in his happiness in any way. So I chose not to say anything. But then there was this one particular day. I woke up, and God had put in my spirit to tell him that I like him. And because God told me, I was like, okay, I'll do it. I don't know how this is gonna go. I didn't want to, but I'm gonna just go ahead and do it. Now, when I told him, it's not what it didn't. How the turnout didn't turn out the way I expected, or what you may have expected. And the expectation is either saying that he didn't have feelings back, or that he does have feelings back. But instead, he was silent, didn't say anything, and frankly, he had a shocking look on his face. So I went ahead and said my feelings, but it didn't really go forward from there. Unfortunately, the downside of what happened moving forward was that we ended up becoming like enemies. Because as he was moving forward with his marriage, his girlfriend was also trying to figure out if there was anybody else, like I guess in some way you can say that she was having second thoughts about moving forward with the marriage while he was also having second thoughts as well. So they did a lot of arguing. It was actually the start of when he started, not an official start, but he would come into work late because he might have been arguing with her. But not only was that happening, he was angry with me, short with me. He wouldn't even talk to me. So if it's just simple like, hey, how's it going? He wouldn't even respond. And this increased actually to the point where he made it so hard and difficult just to work with him and just for me to work, period. It was really bad that it got to a point for me. I was like, fine, you're not going to talk to me. I won't say anything. I'm not even going to try. Now, when he would not talk to me, that actually hit a childhood trauma of mine because my dad would do that. I would be a kid saying, hi, daddy, or even ask to play a game with him, and he would just act like I wasn't there. So this guy just like turned around and did what my father did, which was something I strongly did not like. So I'm at work. He's making my life a whole lot harder because of his emotional turmoil of what he's going through. And not only is he making my job harder by just working with him, he's also coming in late. At first, it used to be like an hour late, then an hour and a half, then 2 hours. But then eventually, it was just like hours late. So I ended up having to take on a managerial role, which I wasn't supposed to. I was just supposed to be a mere employee. I'm on a break. I'm not trying to have all this extra work. One of my primary goals when I started working here was not to let anyone know that I had managerial skills. Because I know the moment you do that, people then want to give you more work. But I ended up having to run an overnight diner by myself, making sure everything was the way it was supposed to. So I literally had a crash course on management in this diner because he wouldn't show up. And even if he did show up, he gave me a hard time. So I literally had to call the shots. That he would even get upset about how I would not come and ask him questions or come get his help. And it's like, you're not here. He would even be upset when the other servers would even come to me for help. And it's like, if you're not here and you're not proving to be reliable, they're going to go to someone who is. So there was just a lot of issues when it came to working with him. And it was during that time when I decided, fine, I'm not going to talk to him back. I'm done. Because I do hit that moment of being done. It got to a moment where I know God wanted me to relent, but I didn't want to. And I kept holding back, like, nope, I'm going to keep my stance. He's been treating me horribly. No. And then I'm guessing he picked up on that, how I'm not even interacting with him. I'm not even asking him dealing with work stuff or talk to him about work stuff. He tried being nice so that I would, and I wouldn't relent. The only reason why I did was because on 2 occasions I saw how upset he got. And from there, it was like, okay. Like, I'll talk to him, but it's like, how do I deal with someone who's put me through all this? Even when I had the conversation with him, like, I don't know how to interact with you anymore. He was being cocky, thinking he was funny, saying, like, you are. It's like, that's not what I mean. But even though we had that little conversation, he still continued to show up late and wouldn't even be there when I needed an extra person there. So I had to, and I ended up going through like a whole summer. I had to deal with broken air conditioning, servers fighting, customers having issues. There were also, we ended up going through a bit of an infestation also in that diner. So I'm dealing with everything on my plate, and when he comes in maybe about an hour or two before I actually have to leave. And even when he comes in, he's really not even much help. So I had a fight and a battle that I did not want to go through. Eventually, coming to the month of July, no, backtrack that before this moment in time, and even with all the hardship I was going through, what God wanted me to do, in particularly, was to still honor His authority because He was a manager over me. There was a certain point where He got promoted. He was a manager over me, so I still had to honor His authority. And that God still wanted me to love Him, but not in a romantic sense, but in the agape sense. So, for anyone who knows in the Christian faith, the love that we are to give to others is agape, which is an altruistic, selfless kind of love. It wills the good of others, and it's also selfless. So, that was the type of love God wanted me to give, and it was in the form of friendship. So, I had to be a friend to someone who was treating me bad. Eventually, it kind of like settled down a little bit. But going into July, leading up to July, I decided to do a Daniel fast. And because by this point, I wanted to leave that diner so bad. But I also was continuing my relationship with the Lord. So I'm doing this Daniel fast. And very first day of this fast, or going into this fast, my best friend tells me that her dad wants me out of the room that I'm renting in so he can give it to someone else. And I had like a month to figure out where the heck to live. Simultaneously, in that month, I'm also dealing with car issues. I have to get a new battery, and because I don't make a lot at the diner, I was only making $12 an hour. I had to deal with everything right. The thing that sucked about it was that the owner, which is my best friend's father, he ended up having to deal with the paychecks at the diner, and he messed up my money. There was one check I was expecting to have extra money in because I came in on an extra day, like a 4th of July, and I didn't even get that money. So I ended up having less money, struggling financially for that month, having to work. I had to still buy a battery. So the day when I had to get the battery, I ended up missing work, and I had to wait for my check to go through in my bank so that I can have someone come out and change my battery. And then not only am I going through an issue of residency, transportation issues, the servers who I have helped and been there with all turn on me because there was one server, was like the ringleader. There were things that she was doing, and I would have to call her out on it. Like, one, you shouldn't be doing that. If I'm here as the manager, like, you, if I'm saying one thing, you gotta do it. You can't just override it because then it messes with the business. This is still a business. And so, because she didn't like being spoken to or being addressed on something that she did wrong, she caused the rest of the servers to actually go against me. So I have all these servers fighting me, and it's just me, one person. I have no one coming to my defense. No one's backing me up. Simultaneously, I have customers coming in. I have to be in a managerial role, have to do what's right for this business. And I got customers arguing and fighting with me. So I'm being fought by customers, being fought by servers. The cooks are even giving me a hard time because they're frustrated off of something. I had to emotionally manage the actual manager who doesn't even show up on time. I'm handling so much on my plate, under my belt. And I even knew and understood that this was a spiritual battle also. It was so much I really could not take it. That coming out of July, I had already determined that I was going to get another job and get out of here because I was done. I was so done. So by the end, going into August, I moved back in with my best friend and I was applying to other jobs. I did get hired like somewhere in August at a job, had to go through some training things that by the end of October, I quit the diner. And the week that I quit, I told the main manager of the whole diner that I'm quitting. This is my last week. I kind of kept things under wraps. And I said, I'm just going to ask that you don't tell everybody because I don't want everyone to know. There were some people I did tell that I was leaving. I just let them know, don't tell anybody. So, like, when I left, the majority of the people were shocked that I even left because they didn't even know what was going on. When I told my manager slash coworker slash this weird complicated relationship with that I was leaving, that is my last week, he was really upset. Like, it looked like someone shot his puppy, kind of upset. That by the time it was Saturday, I got to, it was already busy for Saturday night, and I ended up watching Interstellar up on the TV in the diner. And because I haven't seen it, he let me primarily watch it, and he did all the other work that he was supposed to do. But as I'm watching it, he's also sitting close to me as I'm watching it. So he and I are like literally watching it together, which just comes to show like the emotions that he's probably already having. But I left, and I remember when I left the diner, I was so happy. I felt so relieved. I went home and I went to sleep, and I felt so good that I felt like when I went to sleep. My best friend even left me a letter for when I came home. She's saying, I'm so proud of you. You got yourself a different job. You're going to do great at the new job, even though I gave myself some time to even take a break. The downside was that I also got sick, like leaving the diner. But as I'm learning this new job, which was highly dependent upon me just being able to drive there myself, and especially going into like the Christmas season, I ended up working a lot more. It was during this time I eventually uh I wanted to build my relationship with the Lord and also get direction on where for my life to go, because I was tired. I knew I wanted to start a business. Before I had left the diner, I wanted to have a Christian streetwear, and this was like years and months of like, okay, Lord, what can I do? I want to have a business. What should I do? And anytime I would give him an idea, he's like, no, that's not it. So there was one day when I was like, I like fashion, and I kind of like this streetwear. I was like, how about Christian streetwear? He said yes, and I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. This is exciting. Then I knew I needed more money to come in, so which was also another factor in why I left the diner. So I ended up working on my relationship with the Lord, trying to also prepare and start up a new business. And somewhere in November, I eventually went on a 40-day social media fast. And it even carried a little bit over into the new year, or right before the new year. During this fast, I gotta say, God changed my world in so many ways, and He continued to go. He went in and healed more areas of the trauma that I faced with my mom. It's just like I learned more about my mom in that time. Because there was one day I woke up and God had dropped in my spirit that my mom was jealous of the fact that I was going to the Lord instead of coming to her. That my allegiance and my focus was shifting from her to the Lord, and my mom had a problem with that. It was like she wanted to be in that spot of where my attention and where my focus was. It was also during this time, leading up to the fast, and even during the fast, I got introduced to Lisa Bevere, and at the time there was advertising for her book, The Fight for Female. The reason why I ended up listening listening to Lisa Bevere was when she was taught. There was one in particular. It was like one particular video. She was talking about Derek Prince. I hope it was Derek Prince, but she referred to him as Brother Prince, and he was talking about how he was grieved for women in the fight that women would have to go through. Because if it's the Derek Prince, if she's talking about Derek Prince, he was given revelation and prophecy about what was going to be happening. So he's even a good pastor that I would listen to. Like, especially when it comes to spiritual warfare, Derek Prince is the main one to go for. But because of that, I started listening to Lisa Bevere, and I literally went through a healing journey because I was listening to her podcasts while also listening to Christian music. So I started transitioning more into listening to primarily gospel music. That now is the primary thing that I listen to. I really don't listen to secular music anymore. When it came to dealing with secular music, that was during the summer of 2024, where I had to stop listening to secular music because of what it was feeding into my spirit. So I'm listening to Lisa Bevere, especially when I was driving 2 hours to and from work. So from where I was working. I ended up working in stores that was close to New York. So I had a 2 hour drive to and from every day. So 4 hours daily on the road, and I'm just listening to her podcasts, and I'm growing and I'm healing. I mean, there was one store I was working at, and I was having a bit of a late night, and I'm sitting there working in this store, and I'm bawling my eyes out, and it was dealing with um my weight, and how I've had this battle dealing with my weight because of something my mom said when I was younger. And it was actually me and my sister. She told both of us, because we were kids not wanting to eat our vegetables, she said that we were going to grow up to be fat women because we don't eat our vegetables, which was very hurtful. Because, like, one, why don't you say that? Most parents sit there and say, you eat your vegetables so you can be big and strong. But for her, it just automatically went into the negative. But when I was growing up, I always felt like anyway, before she even said it, like that I was fat. Even though when I was a kid, I wasn't. So there was just on areas of where I needed to heal as a woman, heal as a daughter. Like Lisa Bevere was that main help. I ended up watching a lot of her stuff, so not just the Fight for Female, but even listening to the Adamant series. Just a lot of stuff that she was teaching, I listened to it, and I got to grow in my faith walk, not just as a person, but in particularly as a woman. And there aren't a lot of Christian females that I listen to, for some odd reason, I just don't. I just didn't. But God had to put me in that moment of listening to Lucifer Beer because there were areas He wanted me to grow as a woman and develop as a God fearing woman. So I am very grateful that I got to listen to Lucifer Beer during that time, because going into the new year, I eventually started listening more to her husband, John Bevere, also, and he has also helped me grow. But that's going into 2025. And I learned so much more about my gifting and even how to be in relationship with the Lord, and learning how to have a love for God and a fear of God through John Bevere. But that will be in the next podcast or the next episode. But just during that 40-day fast, God was healing my heart, dealing with me, but simultaneously, He was also preparing me to go back to the diner, because it was also right after I quit the diner. I came across two people within a week time span, and they both are bringing up a name in the Bible which I knew about, but I didn't really learn so much about. And they were bringing up Onesimus. Now, for those who don't know, Onesimus was a slave that ran away from his slave master, which is Philemon. And Paul is writing to Philemon, and it's actually in the New Testament. So Onesimus runs away from his master, trying to be free. He has a particular destination that he's going to, which I don't remember at the current moment. But he ends up coming across the Apostle Paul. And when he comes to the Apostle Paul, he eventually gets saved. As he's saved and he's growing, he eventually goes back to Philemon and to honor his master. Because also Paul intercedes on Onesimus' behalf, telling Philemon, listen, you are saved and Onesimus is now saved. He is your brother in Christ. Do right by your brother and let him free, because eventually Onesimus was free. But the thing was, as soon as I left the diner, God was basically letting me know, I'm sending you right back. So it's during this 40-day fast, while I'm healing and growing and having the groundwork of becoming the woman that God wanted me to be, He's also preparing in my heart to go back to the diner. Because there were different times where I wanted to be back at the diner, even though I know I don't want to be back at the diner. So that's pretty much it for 2024. I had a highly emotional, 2024 was more of that chaotic period of dealing with my emotions and spiritual activity, versus where in 2023 that was more all in the physical and the financial. So I got hit in different areas, in different areas between these 2 years. But 2024 was definitely that, like, I had my heart broken, and I never wanted to have my heart broken. So going into 2025, we actually see where I'm growing even more, because even while things are lightening up and I'm coming out of the suffering, like the heavy hitters of the suffering season, because 2025 is the last year I go through suffering. But there are areas of which God has had to clean up in different areas. And we are revisiting some of the lessons I failed at before, and where I acted out in disobedience. And so it's kind of like I am re-entering into those areas and moving forward. And I'm glad to say that in 2025, with the lessons that came up, I obeyed and I got to pass the test that God had given me. So until next time, I'm excited to talk to you about 2025, because I gotta say that year I got to grow spiritually, and it's really exciting about how much I grew. So until next time, thank you for listening. and enjoy the rest of your day.